Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're in Synthmaster 1 today and it's going to be another free preset day. So you can get this down in the description and also if you haven't already you can head over to Facebook and actually download from there, as well as support the community and get involved in the Demis Hellen chat community and everything. There's a lot of people on there giving out great ideas and sharing their ideas, and people just genuinely like getting better and better in the skills at music production, and it's just a nice place to be. Really nice to see everybody helping each other out. So here we are in Synthmaster 1 and we're going to create something a little bit more automated. So I just want to get this out of the way first. We're going to use an LFO to control the fine tune of the oscillators. We're going to use one oscillator just to keep this simple, but it's a nice effective big sound. But what we have here in the settings is oscillator 1 pitch and oscillator 2 pitch, and then you've got the drifter amount and speed, and that simulates more analog style gear and then hardware synths. But we're going to use the LFOs to do this today. So we know they're there, we're just not using that today because we're going to get a little bit more control with the LFO. Okay, so we've got a initialized preset and a chord structure going, so let's have a listen to that. Bog standard stuff, nothing too drastic there. We're going to turn on filter 1. And we've got a low pass 12, and we're just going to keep it there, that's the default. And usually to create a nice plucky sound, we'd use mod envelope controls here and shape mod envelope 1. We're not going to do that today, we want it to sound more automated because these are sustained chords. So, LFO 1, let's introduce that. So you can see the range here in which this is controlled. So let's have it there, and you can hear this kind of up and down noise, and that is because of the sine wave waveform that is in there at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to sync this, and we're going to put this onto 16ths. Sounding good, but it's not what we're looking for. What we're going to do here is change this to a saw wave, a downwards saw wave, and we get that nice gated feel in there. And we can control how much of this happens. And this is the part that we're going to automate with the mod wheel. We're going to assign the mod wheel to this and the cutoff. Now we have LFO 1 sorted and creating this nice automated gated sequence using the downward saw. We are now going to link LFO 2 to the fine tune and just give it a little bit more zest. So let's keep this playing and I'll let you listen to how this is going. So first things first, we're going to select LFO 2. And what we're going to do is assign this to fine tune. We're going to set this to bipolar, so that is now going to affect left and right of the position, so it's going to go left and right from this blue dot here. And we're going to set this to global, so it's not affected by any note changes, it's just going to keep going round and round and not stop. Okay, and we're going to set the speed to about there, so we've got a nice fast pace. And then when we start introducing this, you'll hear this nice kind of plucky sound that just gives it a little bit more of a humanized feel. Go too crazy with this because we'll start getting too much pitch shifting and it'll sound obvious, but this is quite nice. So we can control this with the speed. But we're going to keep it about there, that sounds good to me. And we're going to add a little bit more width, so we're going to put 2 unison, change this to 3. So I want the sound to be still quite thin, I don't want that detune to really affect too much. Okay, we're just going to shape this here. Let's give it a Pro-Fat filter. can see the effect that is starting to happen there. As soon as we turn this up, what is happening is the LFO here is now not modulating anything, because once it gets past that point of modulation, i.e. when it's fully turned up to 100%, the automation has got no further to go because there's no further control, so it just becomes a solid sustained note. And we can achieve this as well by turning the volume down on here if we wanted to, but we're going to do it that way. So in the mod matrix, we are going to head up to MIDI and mod wheel and cut off, and then we're just going to drag that all the way up. Now we can see. So one thing that I always see people make the mistake of is they have a section of the mod wheel that doesn't actually do anything because the setting is actually gone beyond what it needs to be. So you can see here, it's about here where the sound starts to deteriorate again back into the filter. And there's nothing really happening in that whole section. So I'm going to put it here where I can just about hear that sound. To there, and then when we increase this now, that is the full open filter, even though we do have this modulation still happening. If you want to eradicate the modulation as well, we can attach that to the volume and tell it to turn it all the way down so you get definite sustained chords. Now, this is where the fun part comes in. We can now start adding some effects in. So we're going to put some delay. I'm going to turn the mix down, and let's just mess around with some quarter dotted and eighth dotted. And I'm just going to drop some of this low end out. Okay, so maybe... sounds like enough there. I'm just going to remove some lower more. Let's just increase that to eighths again. Okay, that'll do. We'll keep the width up there just to keep it nice and wide so it's obvious what's going on. We'll add some reverb in here, so I'm just going to put the size up there, the time, the distance quite high, and the mix a bit down, and we'll increase that density as well. Okay, so we're getting that really nice trance laid-back vibe there, and then we can have full sustained chords. And you can have a choice of some form of sidechain, whether it's a Vade or LFO tool or the classic sidechain routing. That would sound quite good with this sound. Okay, so we can add some... Right, let's add some zest into this, and we'll give it a little bit of a lower quality as well in terms of octaves. So we've got this set at 0, so we're going to add the second one in, and we're going to drop it an octave and obviously reduce the volume to the point that it sounds nice. Now we've got that depth, it sounds quite nice. We're going to put on free, turn the detune up, turn the oscillation up, turn the width up. Sounding beautiful. Now we can go back into the mod matrix and we can add the fine tune there, and we can control it the same way, but we can go the opposite way for a little bit of variation. So if you turn it up, it's going to go the same way as this one, but if we turn it the other way, because it's bipolar, it's just going to go the opposite way. So one's going left to right, one's going right. But technically we're going to have a little bit less just because it's lowering the octaves. It's going to sound a little bit muddy if we go too crazy with that. Now what we can do is let's put on some frequency modulation. Let's just see what sound we can achieve from that, just using that. So we're going to turn off oscillator 1. And I'm going to put this on to saw wave. turn this filter up. Let's get this nice and high. Let's put a phase. So we can change the tonality just using some pulse width modulation. You can... sorry, this is phase modulation, sorry. Frequency modulation, it's not working for me on this particular occasion, but we could do that on this other oscillator here and give it a little bit more bite on that front end, give it a little bit more of a snap. So that is that side done. So let's go back to here. And we'll pick frequency modulation here. Just take some of that lower end out using some frequency modulation. There you can hear there's less detail in that lower end. It just controls that lower end just using a simple sine wave and lets oscillator 2 now take over that lower portion. So now it's got more bounce, it sounds a lot nicer than just having that as a straightforward saw wave. We've got the modulation, we've got the width, all sounding good. So let's have a listen to this in full. Let's make this bit a little bit more obvious. We'll introduce some more LFO. Bit of key tracking. Just a little bit of resonance to give it a little bit more of a nicer fade in there. So these are all little tweaks that you can do throughout this. And another good idea, lo-fi is a really nice effect to add on. Reduce the bits. So it adds a little bit more detail under there. It does depend on the sound. So it's entirely up to you how you do that. Okay, so there we have it. That is using LFO2 to control some fine tuning using the bipolar feature and the global control. Then we're using the 16th synced mode here without the bipolar on a saw wave downwards slope to control the cutoff and give it a nice automated gate feel. Along with having the modulation wheel controlling the filter 1 cutoff as well as the LFO1 volume to make sure we don't have any gated automation happening once it's opened up. And that is practically it. Just a little bit of frequency modulation and phase modulation there on the lower portion there. And we've created a sound. Just put a few effects on there and it's all down to just personal taste now. We can add more things in there. We could go and put some velocity control on there so we could get some really nice cut-off features. So whereas it sound like this, we could go a bit higher and then just use a little bit of velocity. So we get a bit of velocity sensitivity in there as well, and it all sounds nice. And we can obviously automate volumes of filters if we wanted to kind of boost that volume rather than just lower the volume because we're lowering the frequency response using the cutoff. You can do all sorts of things like that. There's plenty of parameters that you can control and it is all good. The only other thing that I probably would recommend is controlling the mix amount of your reverb. So instead of just controlling it here, we can have it set to full. And we can use the constant feature in here as well. Use constant and then go to reverb, effect amount, and we can control how much of that effect is applied. So it doesn't make too much sense to do it this way for the reverb here, but what we could do is if we had chorus on there, select effect amount here. When you go onto chorus, you don't have an amount or mix knob on this section, but you can use that as your mix. So we can apply a little bit of chorus on there and then control that mix down to how we've set that up. So there are a few little things to keep your eyes on for when you're doing some preset design. But apart from that, that is sounding pretty good. There is a few different ways that you can route these as well. Split, parallel and series. I've kept this on series, but if you wanted to process oscillator 2 totally independently, put it onto split, and then you've got filter 2 and then both the amp 2 and mod envelope 2 as well to control that whole side independently to this one as well. Great for pad design, and you can create some interesting leads as well, which you'll see in some upcoming preset design things that are going to be floating around in the near future for Synthmaster 1. Okay, so I hope that gives you an insight into preset design and how you can tweak a few little things. I've given you a few little pointers in there on how to achieve a certain type of sound if you want that really kind of close feel where it's like more personal. Use some fine tune to modulate using the LFO, and that will give you a bit more of a natural sound, and it will give you that more twangy, plucky sound, which is associated with solo leads and things like that. Use the unison to widen up the sound, but just put a minimal amount of detune, then increase the width, and that way you just kind of get that singular sound still, but you have opened it up a little bit. Just be aware of phase issues. There is a little bit of phasing going on there where it seems to be going left and right without any automation on the panning there, as you can see. So there's things like that to watch out, but you can use external effects to watch the phase and the modulation and all that sort of thing. Finally, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and leave a comment down below. I'll get back to everybody. And finally, hit subscribe if you haven't already. 3 videos per week on music production and trance tutorial topics. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.